When Wave 1 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass first released, the best way I could describe it was a cotton candy flavor with a really weird pickle aftertaste. In case you have no idea what that means, that's because it makes no sense and I need to get better at writing scripts. What I mean by that is the fact that, on the whole, I enjoyed the fact that there were finally some new courses to race on after having the same 48 tracks for the past 5 years. However, deeper down, it was pretty clear that there was a lot to be desired. There were some tracks that very clearly should not have been in Toad Circuit. Some courses felt like downgrades to the original, like Sky Garden and Coconut Mall. There was absolutely no anti-gravity present anywhere, and most notably, the graphics were absolutely lacking. So in the 5 or so months of painfully waiting for Wave 2 to be revealed, I just had one hope: that everything that Wave 1 did wrong, Wave 2 did right. So there I am, just spending the summer in my room, playing nothing but Mario Kart 8 Deluxe in hopes that Wave 2 would be revealed. And with every day that passed came nothing, and nothing, and more nothing. Until one day in late June 2022, there it was, the Wave 2 trailer, and boy was I blown away. Practically everything about Wave 2 screamed better than Wave 1. Better and more recognizable tracks, the inclusion of a brand new track, and most importantly, textures! It was still a long way to go, but right away I could tell this DLC was heading a step in the right direction. It's almost like Nintendo did this thing called listening. Continuing the anticipation train for the day Wave 5 comes out, I think it's time to see how I rank the 8 courses that came in Wave 2, and hopefully you guys will agree with what I got to say here. Before I start though, I have a little favor to ask of you. Why not just quickly scroll down there and hit that little red subscribe button? If you hit it, I'll give you a treat. I don't know what I'm saying, just subscribe please. But anyway, without further ado, let's get into ranking Wave 2 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass.
早上好，中国！现在我有冰淇淋。
Sky High Sunday. This is the first new track in the Booster Course Pass, and the first new track in forever, and it's literally just glorified oval number 16. The course is themed around desserts. Where have I seen that before? While the concept is definitely there, having to jump between different desserts without falling off, it falls flat on its execution. Also, for some reason, this course is entirely anti-gravity because... why? Literally no DLC track before this has a smidge of anti-gravity anywhere, and then suddenly this track has it for the entire race? Did Nintendo see the criticism of the lack of anti-gravity in Wave 1 and think, yes, this'll definitely fix all those issues? Even weirder is the decision to use F-Zero physics, which makes playing the course feel very wonky. And look at this section with the staircases. Apparently these rails are supposed to be boost panels, and yet there's literally no visual representation that that's supposed to be the case. They kinda just exist, with the expectation that we're supposed to hit them. Also, this might just be a nitpick, but what is this drop right here? It's practically a blind drop because of how the camera angle is. It's not necessarily the end of the world, in fact 10 times out of 10 I always land on this platform, but it just feels so jarring when playing. The fact that this track ends off all of Wave 2 after playing bangers like Waluigi Pinball, Snowland, and Mushroom Gorge is just utterly disgraceful. I think it should be pretty easy to see why this shallow track is in last place. Mario Circuit 3. It's pretty clear why we don't see many SNES tracks return nowadays. The SNES retros in the modern Mario Kart games have had this pattern that makes them different from other retro remakes. And that's the fact that they barely do anything to make themselves any different from the original. They are always flat as a pancake and surrounded by pretty colored blocks for some reason. And Mario Circuit 3 is pretty much no exception to this. First of all, we already had 2 Mario Circuits before this, one of which was already flatter than the Earth besides one section, so was another one really necessary? And to be honest, Mario Circuit 3 is pretty much the most generic of the SNES Mario Circuit tracks, as 1 is the very first track in the series, so it's kind of iconic despite its short length, 2 has the glider ramp at the end, which makes it feel more modern, and 4 has never been remade before. So literally any of these 3 tracks would have been better choices than Mario Circuit 3, which kinda just exists. The course's aesthetic and music are also pretty questionable. The background of the course has these very 2D SNES-like hills and a cartoony pea-colored skybox, which can cause the course's lighting to look very off at times. And the music is only slightly remixed, but mostly keeps the SNES-sounding style from the original. At first glance, this might seem cool, as it seems to preserve the nostalgia feeling of the very first Mario Kart game, but then you remember that Donut Plains 3 and Rainbow Road exist in the base game, so what's this course's excuse? Oh wait, I forgot, because it's part of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, that's why. Silly tick, how could you forget that? Anyway, all that aside, you might be wondering why I place this higher than Sky High Sundae, and that's because, in spite of its flat design, it feels more engaging to race on due to all of the turns that you take, especially this turn right here, which is pretty satisfying to do in 200cc when you drive over the off-road, whereas Sky High Sundae barely has any turning at all. So this course is kinda just whatever. It's in the game. I don't mind playing it at all, but it's such a snooze fest compared to the other courses that it's basically never a priority for me. I mean, hey, it's still better than Toad's Circuit to say the least.
Yeah, in New York!
New York Minute, the very first city track that was ever in Mario Kart Tour. You would think because of that it would be pretty bad, and considering how critical I was of Tokyo Blur and Paris Promenade in the previous video, that's not entirely wrong. The visuals are somewhat more interesting to look at than Paris and Tokyo, but only to a minor extent. The layout does feel a bit more engaged, but at the same time it also feels like I'm going to the exact same locations in every lap. I think what furthers the engagement problem is the lack of any sort of traffic in the course. In real life, New York City is known for its traffic that makes me wonder how all the people there can live with this every day. But here in Mario Kart, there's just dead nothingness. There's a bus and a few taxis that sit on the road, but it's just that. They just sit there and add almost nothing to the course. I think it would have been cool if this track had moving cars in it like Toad's Turnpike and Shroom Ridge did. Or at the very least, have these two taxis here moving back and forth like the cars in Coconut Mall did. New York Minute had the chance of being something more despite its simplistic appearance, but ultimately it didn't take that risk, leaving it very bare bones.
You see me rolling down the track. You know that I travel and I've got fat stacks.
Calamari Desert. Despite the more simplistic layout, this was always one of the more interesting desert stages in the series, primarily due to its sunset setting as well as the addition of a train. In previous iterations of this course, it was just whatever at best. 8 Deluxe's version, however, did something that I think solidifies it as the best version of the course, because now the second and third laps have you going onto the train tracks and into the tunnel. I thought this was a really cool thing to do because, number one, this allowed the train tracks to be an actual part of the race rather than just something you do optionally to waste your time like in the original game. Number two, it allowed the train to become more of a hazard that you have to try to avoid. And number three, it gave more depth to the course's otherwise basic layout. Fun fact, I actually predicted that something like this would happen when I made my first predictions for the Booster Course Pass.
I want to speak about Calamari Desert in particular, because Mario Kart Tour not only brings back this course, but also introduces a second variation called Calamari Desert 2, where going along the train tracks and into the tunnel is actually part of the course now, rather than just being an optional waste of time. So what I'm thinking was that the first lap could just be normal Calamari Desert, while the second and third laps are based on the two sections of Calamari Desert 2.
So that's cool, I guess. However, despite me liking the additions made to the course, I don't think it's perfect in every way. First of all, there's now only one train instead of two like the original. While this is somewhat understandable since now you go onto the train tracks, I would have liked the challenge of having to dodge two trains while on the tracks. Speaking of the tracks, since the third lap now starts when you go into the tunnel, it kinda makes the track feel too short as a result. Lastly, I think the texture work on the ground and sand is pretty good, but I think they could have done a better job with the canyons in the background because they are looking a little flat to me. However, while it's not perfect, I think 8 Deluxe's version of Calamari Desert is the best iteration of it.
The underground will turn upside down.
Sydney Sprint. This is probably the first city track that I genuinely like playing. The calm summer atmosphere felt so nice to cruise through, and there are plenty of distinct landmarks throughout the race like the Opera House, the Harbor Bridge, and the Barangaroo Reserve, the latter of which being my favorite section of the course due to the twisty path offering a bit of a challenge, and the many opportunities for off-road shortcuts. But by far the highlight of the course is that music. This was the absolute jam of Wave 2's soundtrack, and at the time it solidified the course as one of my favorite tour cities in the Booster Course Pass. Aside from that, the course is just overall fun to play through and look at all of the different places you go to.
Reporting on the snow. I mean, it's in the streets.
Snowland. This was probably the most unexpected course that was revealed for Wave 2, especially since the course wasn't in tour at the time of its release. However, I found this course to be quite fun to play. First of all, the course visually looks really good. I like the ice road design, the snow textures, the large ice crystals in the background, this ice lake in the middle, and especially the skybox. That pink hue of the sky helps this course stand out from other snow courses in the game like Sherbet Land or Ice Ice Outpost. The actual gameplay of this course is also pretty fun as well. I really like how they have the item boxes moving along the course, which I don't think happens in a lot of courses. Oh, and what's this? The course actually has a faithful map layout to the original, Sky Garden. Also, did I mention the penguins roaming around the course? I don't think Mario Kart 8 had penguins before this, and I think they're a really cool addition that helps make the course even more distinct. Too bad you can't throw them off the cliffs.
That is but a taste of our fury. Do you yield? I do not.
The cheery music of the course also helps bring the calm snow day vibe of the course together. You know, I never thought I'd see myself enjoying a snow course that isn't Mount Wario this much, but what this course did to improve itself from the original makes it so much fun to play. Waluigi Pinball. Okay, I know you guys are like, why is this not number 1? Let me quickly explain the negatives of this course that kept it from being number 1 on my list before I get into everything else. First of all, the fact that this course does not have any anti-gravity seems like a huge missed opportunity. There are so many sections of the course that are so angled and tilted that would have made perfect spots for anti-gravity, but they just didn't do it. The other major issue is that the course uses the exact same music as Wario Stadium. I know the two courses originally shared the same music in DS, but now in this game they are the only two courses to share the same music. Even Mario Kart Stadium and Mario Circuit, which have the same theme, have different arrangements than each other, so I wish that they did the same with Waluigi Pinball, especially since Wario Stadium's arrangement, to an extent, doesn't really fit Waluigi Pinball. But anyway, those are the only two things that I dislike about the course. So what about everything else? Well, it's a freaking pinball, themed after our boy Waluigi himself. What more do I need to say about it? This is probably the most creatively themed course in the Mario Kart series. We're basically simulating what it's like to be a pinball. Getting launched to the top and then going down the path while avoiding the giant pinballs is such an exhilarating experience. And then you get to the table and you're trying to avoid all these pinballs bouncing around and these bumpers that can knock you off track. It's such a crazy idea and I love it. And not to mention all the unique pinball casino-like sound effects when you get an item or start the second lap or something like that. It just adds to the theming. However, if it's not number 1, then what is?
Do not touch that mushroom, you'll die!
Mushroom Gorge. You might be thinking that I'm crazy putting this random Mushroom Cup track from Mario Kart Wii here at number 1. But in my opinion, Mushroom Gorge was the course that I had the most fun playing through in Wave 2. I don't know how to describe it. Something about jumping across these mushrooms is just so much fun, especially when it comes to the cave section with all these mushrooms sporadically placed around, meaning you'll have to master the art of mushroom bouncing, otherwise you'll be facing the unseen mysteries of the abyss below. Well, in Mario Kart Wii at least, because now Lakitu just picks you up. But overall, I really like playing this course, and in particular, I like how 8 Deluxe's version is specifically based on the original Wii version. They brought back the mushroom shortcut at the beginning, and the layout of the mushrooms in the cave better resembles the split path scene in the Wii version, but also having 7's glider mushroom as well. And do I need to mention the inclusion of the infamous gap jump? I'm no heavily competitive Mario Kart player by any means, and there could have easily been Lakitu respawn points covering the entire thing. But the fact that Nintendo essentially kept the gap jump from the original is such a game changer in many aspects, including time trials and online play. All of these factors should pretty much solidify why I think Mushroom Gorge is the best course in all of Wave 2. So what do I think of Wave 2 as a whole? Well, it's a huge step up from Wave 1, especially in the visual department. It's still not perfect, as some courses still have minor flaws that could have been addressed, and Sky High Sundae is Sky High Sunday, but overall I found myself enjoying it more than Wave 1 by a mile, and it only gets better from here. But anyways, that's gonna do it for this video. Those are my rankings on Wave 2 of the Booster Course Pass. Well, that's 2 waves down and 2 to go, but that's only assuming you guys want to actually see me rank them, which you can let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons as it'll help this video reach out to more people. But anyway, that's it from me for now. Thank you so much for watching this video, and I will see you guys next time.